the
We'll
article.
never let you forget The Verge.
Yeah, it's on this podcast. I'm going to put a picture of the article up.
We're changing this to the Verge Watch podcast.
Yeah.
Where
We're
we
changing
hold
it to
them
the
accountable.
Virgin Podcast.
It's already that.
Quentin here. I'm fine, babe.
This is Ethan. Nah, I'm gonna go. Don't worry, Devin's here. This is time. Let's rock and roll!
Welcome to the Power Brothers Podcast, where we aren't all legally allowed to be together in one room anymore.
Breaking the law. I don't really like Beavis and Butthead. I'm glad. Can we redo it?
Let's redo it.
Welcome, guys. Welcome, Michael B.
Welcome, Bubba.
Yeah, you were over there.
Yeah.
And now
And
I'm
now
over
you're here.
here.
There.
Which one of us is a fill-in? Who's the fill-in producer?
Get in the comments.
Yeah, get in the comments. Guess.
Sound off in the
Write Ella
comments.
Purnell in the
Yeah.
comments.
Yes, if you
if
can
you know
figure
which
it out.
producer it is.
Yeah.
Oh, for now.
That's what he's doing.
Rachel, welcome to the podcast. How are you
Welcome
doing?
me. I'm doing good. I'm doing well.
Good. I haven't seen you since a few minutes ago
It's been a while.
because we live together.
Yeah.
Must have been agony.
It's confusing.
Let's see how
time.
uncomfortable we can make people
Yeah.
on this pod
Hard.
today with our
Impossible.
love.
I am completely immune to discomfort.
I'm just not paying
Yeah,
attention.
you've lived
Yeah.
around us for too long and with us for a while.
No, it's just that
Podcast lore.
it's just that I can't be made I'll take my pants off right now. I can't be made uncomfortable.
We don't have anything else to talk about this week, symbolized
Yeah.
by that shelf being empty.
Empty.
the
I
empty
noticed that as soon as we started recording that the shelves are just empty.
It's dead.
Thanks for pointing it out.
You're welcome.
We're
This
done.
is
Thank
the,
you.
Nothing gets past Michael B.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Best
Not-
producer.
absolutely nothing is past.
Just his bills.
Just his bills.
Just
Yeah,
responsibility.
and to be fair, in his defense, like the thing that gets past all of us is the news.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you like what you saw here today. Share us with a friend. Tell your mom about us. Maybe not your mom. Your weird uncle.
Guys, it feels like one of the quietest times in video game recent history.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, we had a ton of announcements at
Yeah.
the Game Awards, and then it's natural that kind of a vacuum would follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we had a blast from the past.
oh, we did.
Battlefront 3.
Oh,
Free
yeah.
Radical.
Yeah.
Wii edition.
Yep.
Playable.
Yeah.
Got leaked online.
Crazy.
That's pretty crazy. Did
I
it?
love leaks.
So was it actually like playable or was it footage?
It was
No, it's
footage
pla-
of some guy playing it, but I'm sure you can find it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Was
like
it
a
was the
dump.
Wii build
Mhm.
of?
Yeah.
You know how he's flying a starship, and you know how you have to point the Wii remote to steer it.
That's
so the
pretty cool.
reticle.
Oh, that is pretty cool.
The best use of the Joy-Con was in a game I played called Sky Crawlers. Or I should say the best use of the Joy-Con in like that vein, the Joy-Con.
The Wii remote. Yep.
It was in a game called the Sky Crawlers that I played, where you held the nunchuck in your right hand and the Wii remote in your left, and the Wii remote was like an accelerator.
That
And
was
so
cool.
you like
Cool.
move it down to accelerate and up, and to pull back, and the Joy-Con was a
The
joystick
nunchuck.
yoke.
You can't stop saying Joy-Con.
Ty's brain
I
is
can't talk
broken.
anymore, guys.
Yeah.
I'm done.
It's cooked. It's over,
I'm
chat.
done.
Yeah,
It's
welcome to the
over.
Bushmouth podcast.
But yeah, it was like a joystick yoke, and so you'd pull it back and forward
That's
pretty
to adjust
cool.
it.
What's
It
that
was
called?
really fun. It's called Sky Crawlers.
It was
I'm gonna
weird
order
because
that.
that game is based off of an anime, and you
Yeah.
play as the villain of the anime.
You do.
Not villain. He's not a character. It's just there's an ace pilot on the enemy side
Yeah,
of the
who's just
war
killing everybody.
who's just killing everyone. And the game, you're him.
Yeah.
He's a faceless character. He never shows up in the
Yeah.
series. But like,
Turns out he's a baller.
turns out he's just you from a video game. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
It was
wild.
clever.
It was clever.
I think that's much more clever than just
Yeah.
like, oh, you're gonna play as a character from the game. It's like
Yeah.
you're a faceless character from the game who happens
From
to
the
be a
anime.
bad
Yes,
guy.
this is why I'm looking forward to the game where I get to play as the gym sniper from the
From-
8th MS team,
Mhm.
who the faceless pilot who
saved
destroys the
everyone.
villain in the end.
yeah, who
like,
saved everyone.
I'm looking forward to the game where I get to play as that serial killer from Monster.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
Oh dear.
Is that what you're talking
Rachel,
about?
write it
the
down. No, I'm
anime.
just kidding. I'm just
The
kidding.
anime.
Okay, so
Yeah, news. What's
Who's
what's
going- who's
I have
going
no
first?
news because I want to announce one small thing.
Oh.
Just as that I beat my record.
Oh.
I'm sitting here now and I still don't know what game of the year was given out.
We're
at
not
the
gonna
Game
tell
We
you.
Awards.
didn't
We're
watch
not
the
gonna
last
sp-
episode
we're
of
not
the
gonna spoil
podcast.
it.
I haven't seen it yet. I wasn't going to watch it until this episode to see if it slips out somewhere.
We're not going to spoil it.
We're
Alright,
at 7
guys.
days. Yeah.
Spoil it in the comments for Ethan.
Spoil it in the comments.
Go to the
Yeah,
comments and
comments.
spoil because apparently
Tell them the Balatro.
you don't exist on the internet anywhere else.
I've been dodging it.
No.
Yeah,
Dodging
tell
it
them
like
all
Neo
about
from Matrix.
Balatro, guys.
He's been.
I've seen all the trailers except for Turok, which I hear it was the only
Looks
good one.
It's cool.
No, Virtual Fighter looks really
Virtual
good.
Fighter looks
I
fun.
mean,
I mean, obviously,
trailer.
I think that like a lot of them looked intriguing. I think Night Rain looks intriguing. Like I'm excited for any more
Elden
Elden
Ring.
Ring that we get.
Yeah, but it's kind of not Elden Ring.
Yeah,
is
that's
the reason
also
I'm-
true.
I'll have
Yeah, that's
to.
also
I have to
true.
see a little more of it.
You're only gonna like Night Rain because it was
Yeah.
like one of the few that had gameplay.
Yes, it has
Virtual
gameplay.
Fighter had like. It looks more like
Little-
concept of gameplay. It doesn't look like real gameplay. But anyways,
Anyway, I've avoided the news
Yeah,
for
good
that
job.
very reason. So I'm
job.
leaning on you guys this
Nicely
week.
people are really happy about it. There's no controversy.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
It's all really good.
like every year.
Like every year.
We
Yeah.
implicitly
No,
trust.
speaking of, we
News?
weren't talking about Sony, but speaking of Sony, so the Kawagawa, I think is what it's called. I messed that up.
Cowabunga?
Kangawa, I think.
Kangawa.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Kangagawa.
They own FromSoft
yeah. So we now have the announcement of it.
that they bought 10%.
No. They are Sony and them have announced that Sony has just become the biggest shareholder in the company.
Yeah.
Not the majority shareholder.
No.
The biggest shareholder. Now Tencent does not own as much as Sony does.
And that I am very happy
That's a
about.
good thing objectively, but it kind of gives a little bit more context. As a Mario and Luigi Brothership fan, I'm going to keep talking about that game until 2025. I was worried because the Acquire, the studio that made it,
Yeah.
was part of that, was under their umbrella.
Yeah.
But Sony doesn't own the company, so the company
So-
can still do what they want.
Doesn't Nintendo own like a big share in some other game related thing that just doesn't appear that often on Nintendo platforms? I was trying to
Probably.
remember.
They own like Nintendo has like a little bit. If a company's public and it's in Japan,
They
I've
might own
heard
a
that
little.
Nintendo has something to do with it. Just within the gaming industry, they buy shares to
Yeah.
just have a.
Yeah.
We're talking about the country where like when you hand someone a business card, you're supposed to like take it with two hands and like read it and like
Carefully.
and like keep holding it for the rest of the conversation. So
You have
there's
to
all
brand
these,
it on your skin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love stories about Japanese business people meeting
Yeah.
Americans who take your business card and go thanks and shove it in their back pocket and they're all
like these people are monsters.
And they're right.
And they're right.
Correct.
And they're right.
So you heard it here first. You definitely didn't, but you heard it here first. Sony didn't acquire.
Cool.
I will not go into more detail.
I don't think any more
Nor should
details.
you.
That's the
That's-
only reason you wanted to
got
bring
it.
that up, just so you
it's
could
the
say
only
that.
reason
I did,
I wanted
yeah.
it. I wanted it. We'll do my news last because I feel like it's less news and just like a fun thing to talk
Oh,
about
okay.
during the news. So you said you had another piece of news?
Yeah. Okay. So you know how we're all big Elder Scrolls fans.
Obviously.
Did you
Yes.
know that? This is the
Favorite
first
Elder
time
Scroll was Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
That's my favorite Elder Scroll.
That's the best one.
yeah, that's the reason we're really into it is because we just brought it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Of course.
and we're super into anything. we
Did
talk about on
did
the
Elden? I'm sorry.
did Elden Ring?
Did Elden? I was about to
We're
say.
really
did Elden
showing
Ring
off
6
how much we like
title?
Elder Scrolls.
Elder
No.
Scrolls
Elden
6.
Scrolls.
Did
No.
Elden Scrolls? What? No.
Did
so
he get a trailer?
I don't know if it's a leak or not. I assume it's a leak, but Oblivion remake
Yeah.
Lame.
2025.
Yeah.
Oh.
The game, the thing no one was asking for not because they don't like Oblivion, plenty of people do, but because they've been asking for the Elder Scrolls 6 instead.
Yeah,
They announced that like 4 years ago.
2019.
It'll only
It was
be
at
like
an
7 or 8
E3,
more
wasn't it?
years
Yeah.
before we get a first look, and
it will be
20.
and it will be bad.
It will be
Yeah.
glitchy
Very
and
bad.
bad, and
It's going to
Is
be
it-
online only.
Someone like
Elder Scrolls 76.
of
Yes.
pirate software as it said it perfectly, is like stop following studios and start following creators.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they make
Yes.
cool games, they'll make the cool games wherever they're at.
But they don't stay at the
Yes.
same
They
place.
don't stay at the same
Yeah.
place.
That's true.
And once they're gone, it's just an IP and a studio. It's not the people who made it.
Well,
Right.
that, to your point, one of people's biggest excitements at the Game Awards was the Outer Worlds 2, which is made by a lot of people who were at Bethesda and were
Mhm.
largely responsible for the Fallout series. And
Looks
there's-
like a Bethesda game.
yeah, there are a lot of similarities between it. And like a Bethesda game, it is buggy and broken. But like an old school
Unfortunately.
Bethesda game, it's real fun.
Yeah.
And it came out.
It came out.
It's
yeah,
real.
that's
Yeah,
right. It
it's
had
real,
development time
it
just like 3 or
released,
4 years.
yeah.
It was easy.
I bet there's no like extensive DLC.
There's
or,
no
like,
DLC.
Pay for
Mm-mm.
extra.
There's
life.
nothing.
It's kind of one of those things where I feel like it's
magic.
like self-flagellation, where these companies
Yeah.
are like, we have to have these giant graphics and super amounts of detail and all of this and all of that, and then like they're like, oh, these games are just too expensive to make anymore, and then like Valheim comes out with its bad
Yeah.
graphics and clipping models,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, this game is the best.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Skyrim was not the best when it came out. It, was it looked like trash. It
Yeah.
always has. It's just fun. And they
But the
make
trailer was really good.
it was. The
It
music is
was
great.
good.
But they set the bar for like the expensive parts so high,
Yeah.
and no one
Yeah.
cares anymore.
Look,
No one
I'm
cares.
going to say it. Elden Ring has bad graphics.
It looks
It's a
ter-
beautiful game,
Yeah.
but it has bad graphics.
The art direction is what's
The
most
art direction
important.
is great.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it doesn't matter because you're having fun and you're too scared of the big monsters trying to step on you the whole time to even notice the graphics.
So like
Yeah.
I do a lot of digital art, and one of the things that like they'll tell you in every beginner's tutorial is you can get lost trying to just make everything hyper detailed and burn
yeah.
yourself out instantly.
Oh, yeah.
And it's details no one can see. You
Yeah.
zoom the picture out, the pixels literally aren't there anymore.
Right.
And so it's like, don't zoom so far in and get every little pore done because it won't matter.
Yeah.
Give the effect
Yeah.
of skin that has pores on it, and that will carry it. You
Yeah.
don't need all of it. And these companies are doing like, they're making that very amateurish mistake of like, why do you need like the hairs on people's faces to be actually rendered in real
Yeah.
time
Right.
when it's like, this is Spider-Man, bro. I'm like flying through New York City. I don't need to see like the hairs on your like
No.
skin because I need to see the giant like building in front of me, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they're like killing themselves in the budgets by making these like, giant games, and it's like destroying their own industry. They can't make them. Elder Scrolls takes forever, and all these games are so expensive they can't even recoup. But
Right.
it's unnecessary.
And when we live in
Yeah.
a world where Starfield happened, like,
Oh,
and it took forever.
I forgot about that.
They even bragged that it took forever. They were like 10 years in the making of Starfield. And then it was like, what were you doing for 10 years? Like, you like traveling to planets or JPEGs, and like traveling to them is in a menu.
They were
Living
working on those
easy.
pores.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Every
exactly.
pore.
I think they were. No, I think they were living easy on like Skyrim money.
That's
Fallout money.
That's the part of it that maybe we don't want to talk about, because
Yeah.
game developers work really hard and the devs work very hard on games, but you have to kind of wonder, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, look at Mina the Hollower. Is it really going to be a game that makes sense why it's taken nearly a decade to come out?
What is that?
It's Yacht Club Games' new game.
Oh, never mind.
They announced it this many years ago, and they showed up at the Game Awards. How dare you? And they didn't say a word about it. How dare
I
you?
know.
And so it's like game development studios, are getting into kind of the now. Mina the Hollower is a good example. It's probably going to be fantastic
Yeah.
and amazing, but I definitely think that I'm almost more comforted when a game took a long time to make, but the scope of it is like reasonable. Like there weren't a lot of complaints about Metroid Prime 4, but the only one that I saw where people were like, it just looks like Metroid Prime, and I was like, thank God. Like,
Where's the
Yeah.
open world?
yeah. Thank God it wasn't like,
Yeah.
we're gonna make sure that the nuts and bolts on
Yeah.
Samus's helmet look great, but the game runs at 12 frames per second. It's
Right.
like,
I miss when games were 12 gigabytes.
yeah,
Of-
well, Nintendo
yeah.
games still are.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
is true.
Alright.
But we had to
Speaking
kind of leave that behind.
of
Speaking
Nintendo.
of Nintendo games, the wacky world of Nintendo Switch 2 leaks.
It's out of hand.
The dam has burst.
I know.
And they're
When even I have seen stuff about it, that's
Yeah,
how you
that's
know it's
pretty bad.
everywhere.
Yeah,
'Cause I
Down
don't
has burst.
follow game stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
The Verge, which is a news
big-
site,
yeah, big news site.
has talked to a leaker and has seen verification of this person, which they are obviously not willing to share
Of course.
to protect this person's
Right.
identity. But they're convinced it was real, and he showed them like pictures of a dock and
Mhm.
of the console. Said it was actually called the Switch 2, which is the weirdest thing.
That puts me on
they
the
could have
verge of tears.
possibly
Really
done.
does.
Well, it makes me believe it isn't real, but they have so much
Yeah.
It should be the Switch Square.
credibility at this point. It should be the Switcheroo, and I
Yeah.
totally
That is the perfect
that
name.
is the perfect
Switcheroo.
name.
Don't add us about that. That's the perfect
It's,
name.
I'm not calling it anything else.
It's your greatest achievement coming up with Switcheroo.
It comes with a live kangaroo,
Comes
and you
with a-
you dock it in the pouch
In the
of the
pouch.
kangaroo.
Yeah, the
Oh,
dot
that's
is
actually
a
pretty
pouch.
cool.
It's called the Switcheroo.
We should establish that these rumors tend to be like a hornet's nest, where
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
when one person swats it, everything comes out.
Yeah.
So what's real and what's just people
so difficult.
going like, oh, I can hide amongst the crowd, no one will notice me. It becomes impossible. Like
Yeah.
maybe this guy did have a Switch.
Well, people. My favorite thing is people
Maybe-
who claim to be like leakers.
Yeah.
Have started fighting each other because they leaked different things.
I know.
So this leaker leaked that like the buttons on the back are not Joy-Con releases. We saw in the mock-ups and renders that it has additional buttons where the triggers right underneath the ZL and ZR. And most people were like, well, those are probably the Joy-Con releases. They're just way bigger now. And he says, no, they're actual buttons. And then another guy comes, at him saying, no, who leaked something before and was like, no, they are
They
Joy-Con
aren't. Yeah,
releases. And so they're fighting each other like Godzilla
That's
and
hilarious.
Mothra.
Yeah. It's what's that bird that like puts its
the cuckoo.
it is called a cuckoo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it puts its
cuckoo.
egg in. Other
Yeah,
birds'
they're
nest.
just hoping no one notices
Nice.
that.
Mhm.
And here's
Yeah.
the thing, because of the nature of leaks, the fact
Yeah.
that we can't people's identities get protected and the details.
Yeah.
Wood Hawker over on the Nintendo podcast, a real podcast.
Mhm.
Fans of the pod.
We'd love to have
We'd
you on the
love to
show.
have you on Nintendo podcast.
We'd
Love to just
Wouldn't that be
play
amazing?
We'd love to just play your podcast on our
on
channel.
our
Yeah,
channel.
that would be-
Just for views.
We would love
Credit.
to have you on the pod, but we don't have a pod.
We don't have a podcast.
Yeah.
If we ever start a podcast, Wood, we're
You're
calling
in.
you.
You'll be our first guest.
No, he pointed out he got really frustrated. He had one of those Bigfoot moments. He's like, "Why is it that all this leaked footage is on a Nokia phone from
Mhm.
2000?
Yeah, it's all terrible.
Why is it not just
Grainy.
like a 4K cameras are lying on the side of the street? Just go pick one up and just record it in 4K so that we can see this thing."
Yeah.
And it is one of those things where like leak culture is trying to sort of stay the way it used to be. Like,
Yeah.
I nervously pulled out a little phone camera and was shaking as the security guard watched me. But it's like that's not really how it. If you've got it, you've got
As soon as
it.
they are taken from further back, is
From really
part of
far
it.
that's-
away.
Like,
that's
Blown
fair.
up.
But this was like a guy like taking it apart.
No, the thing on The Verge, we haven't seen the photos, but he said that the reason he was convinced was one of the pictures was of the inside of a Joy-Con,
Mhm.
the rail, and there was a bunch of stuff stamped into it, like you would see on any kind of electronics.
Sure.
And he started looking up those numbers, and they like are from
Yeah.
Chinese factories where that stuff is made. So
Yeah.
that's how he kind of got the verification. Was the implication. So maybe those are higher quality photos, but you're 100% right in that like every other leaker seems to take their photos underwater. They go underwater, and
Yeah.
and the funniest part is the ones that aren't, that like the Grinch leak you remember for Smash
Yeah.
Brothers, that turned out to be real.
No, the Grinch leak was fake.
No, it was
Was
What
the
fake.
is-
Grinch leak fake?
what
Okay.
is
That's
the
what I
Grinch
mean.
leak?
It's so,
I don't.
The Grinch
didn't
years
remember.
later.
The Grinch leak had Excite Bike as a character.
Yes, that's right.
Oh.
It
But
did
it was
have
a
like
very
ban-
clear picture.
It had Banjo as a character.
And Ken, I think it had. at
Yeah,
the time.
Ken.
yeah.
Partially true.
Well, and the other
It didn't have Incineroar was the thing that like kind of blew it out of the water.
You're absolutely right. That's what made it like, no, this isn't real.
I was thinking of like Dr. Seuss's The Grinch.
That's
That's
It is,
exactly
yeah.
what I was thinking.
It was
it
a-
was so Universal had a deal with Nintendo at the time because they were making the Mario movie, and Universal it was Illumination, right?
Yeah.
Illumination was releasing the Grinch, and so Nintendo stuff was going to print shops with.
Can
The
you
Grinch.
imagine the Lorax in Smash Brothers?
I fight for the trees.
No, he is in it. Every time villager chops down the tree,
Oh
the
my
Lorax appears for
God.
just a
Yeah.
second.
A single
cries.
He's holding
tear.
a sign, a protest sign.
That's so funny. But
I-
yeah. So
I haven't been very happy with a lot of the leaks, and so I'm not
As far
thrilled.
as like the ideas that they're putting out
Yeah.
there for Nintendo.
I feel like the
Why?
last time they did this was 3DS, right? When it was
Mhm.
like, oh, wait a minute, you're just doing the DS again? The
Yeah.
DS is awesome, and now you're doing the 3DS. What does it change? And they were like, it's magic, bro. You stare at it and you see real things coming out of the screen at you. And I'm like, well, now I have to get my hands on this, right?
Yeah,
it was like this
yeah.
thing of like, I just wanted to see it. Like, what is a 3DS? What is this
Yeah,
like screen that's just 3D? And man, that was like a big draw. The leap was one of those big technological leaps, like 64 to GameCube kind of leaps. And so like now we had like real 3D video games instead of this like very minimalistic 3D that the
Yeah.
DS could do.
DS like overcommitted with Mario 64 and was like,
Yeah.
never mind, we're not doing that anymore.
And yeah, exactly. But then with this like Switch 2, it feels like if Sony made a Nintendo console. It's like safe bets, more buttons, but I don't know why they're there, and like
I know what you
more
mean.
powerful. And then instead of like going really creative, they've gone the other direction of like it's just Switch 2 because it'll sell better that way. And I'm like, it probably will,
Probably.
but it will be one of those things where it's like, yeah, the Wii 2 would have sold better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The GameCube 2 would have sold better.
If they
Like,
name it Switch 2, then the Awada days are like truly
That's over.
gone.
Well,
of
that's
each
what moved
console
on.
having a very unique branded name.
yeah.
I have a
Right.
hard time imagining like what else they could do besides the Switch.
Well, they could call it the Super Nintendo Switch. That we all kind of talked about. Like that's a perfect name. It's nostalgic, but it delineates it. It just still uses Switch branding, but
Yeah.
like as far as a name, it's not as boring. But I do. One of the leaks, to your point, Ethan, did say that there is in fact a new gimmick, but wouldn't say what it was. They said it's just something in the Joy-Con, and then they said think lasers.
I love
What?
leakers because they're like, I have the brand new PlayStation 6, and here's all these details about it. It's got a feature, but I won't tell you what it is. You're such a shill and an idiot.
Yeah,
I'm just
right.
hoping that these are lasers, like laser pointers, and I can use them to blind myself.
Yeah, right.
So that I don't have to witness a mediocre
Yeah.
console come out of
'Cause
Nintendo.
Is that like a
Actually-
new way to play Pikmin? You laser point the TV.
Yeah,
And
well,
like,
that's just
Or
called a pointer.
What if it's
For-
one of those laser digital readouts? You know that they project a laser keyboard or something
Could be
onto
cool.
a screen, but it's a little screen, but it's like a Game & Watch
Yeah,
because it can't be that detailed.
I have to say that
I think it's a lie.
yeah, it's definitely a lie.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lie. Of course, it's a
that was
lie.
good.
I'm
Of course
hoping all
it's a
this is a
lie.
lie.
No,
I'm going for the switcheroo.
Here's the thing I'll say is that this is a podcast and this is the news section, so we
Yeah.
talk about what's going on. But I personally do not care about leaks because they're not fun for me to like get all caught up in, because you remember the and it's okay if you are into them, but like the
No, it's not okay.
Smash,
Stop it.
yeah,
Get off.
take it
get
back.
out of here.
Loser.
What
No,
are you doing with
Smash-
your life? Go back to
Not-
college.
Not our 10 viewers.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
What's
Come
that guy's
back.
name? Stevie Meeks.
Yeah,
Quit it.
he's
son.
always
You be
here.
nice to Stevie.
He's always
Wait,
the
we
best.
should be nice to
Stevie's
Stevie.
No, like the Smash 3DS leak got it right that Shulk was in it, but it just took Little Mac's. They just took Little Mac's profile picture and made it look like Shulk, and then put like a model in and made it look like it wasn't actually Shulk in the game.
hmm
But they got it right that Shulk was in the game. So like these guys have made, the most likely scenario is they've made a really, really convincing Switch 2,
Yeah.
a successor to the Nintendo Switch.
Uh-huh.
And the Verge, is it Verge?
Yeah, it's The Verge.
The Verge was really convinced, and for some dumb reason went, we're going to talk about, because Switch 2 is who would use Switch 2 to try to get people's attention? Not us.
It does seem so crazy.
I'm going to put up a picture of our last thumbnail.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love about leaks is I don't get caught up in them or buy into them, but I love like looking at the drama around them and leakers fighting each other. And then after everything's said and done, I love looking back at some of the more ridiculous ones. I love looking back and going, man, can you believe we thought it was going to be called the Switch 2?
Yeah.
And then like what lasers? Come on, that guy was clearly like
he was clearly lying.
That's
to
fun.
us.
I enjoy following leaks. Like I really liked following leaks during the release of Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yeah.
I really liked the channel Papa Genos. He was great because he kept everything like level headed. He didn't hop on the hype train, and he would also just like tell everybody like, remember, grain of salt, don't get too into
Papa
it.
Genos
So the way
is fun.
I follow leaks is I follow them more as like they are separate from the released product.
Yeah.
So I was never like following the leaks like, oh man, I didn't get that character that I was really hoping for. I was like, oh, over here there was this buzz about this character, and then the actual character was a different one.
Right.
Though, to me, like I separate those two things.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
sure.
like for me, I don't like even like these Switch 2 leaks. It's interesting. I don't expect or not expect it to be that. It could be, it could not be. My way of consuming that kind of media for entertainment purposes is that I don't even like associate them together.
Right.
The Switch 2, when someone's like, oh, we leaked the Switch 2 and it's called 2 and it's got something to do with lasers. And I'm like, whoa, my thought process is like, less of like me expecting that. For me, it's more like, what if that was Nintendo's next console? What if it would be like someone saying like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if they called it Switch 2 and it had useless Vita buttons on the back panel and it shot lasers out so you can distract your cat and get your away from the
on
TV?
the back of the Switch.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
And it's like
back touch.
it's like
Rear. Actually,
I don't like that.
rear touch.
it was
Rear
Sony
touch.
actually called it rear
Yeah.
touch.
and I'd be like,
that's fantastic.
Rear touch.
we already had that. It was called the Vita that I glued a laser pointer to. What are you talking about? And so for me, that's how.
specific.
Yeah.
Very similarly, I always view leaks as kind of like in the same vein as like guess that Pokemon. Like, all right,
Yeah.
might be a Pikachu, could be a Raichu. Let's see if I'm right.
Yeah.
But like, it's never anything I'm super invested in if it's
Yeah.
right or wrong. It's just like,
don't
how
get
close
too-
can I get?
Don't get too
Yeah.
wrapped up in it.
I feel like because you know how consoles, when they release, they have like different versions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They had like the Switch had the regular black one, and then it had the pink and blue Joy-Con ones. I feel like if they would see those first,
Yeah.
because that's marketing material that ramps up.
Sure.
And all I want is a GameCube Switch 2. That's
Like in
purple.
the color
I
or
want a
the
purple one.
Yellow,
that-
like yellow joystick.
Mhm.
The color,
on the right.
the kind of like matte
Yes.
material.
That'd be
Mhm.
awesome.
Indigo
Finish.
color.
Yeah.
Indigo.
I will say
Ooh.
to Leaks credits, like we do probably know what the general shape of the Switch 2 is going to be, based on all these
circle.
like based on all the cases and stuff.
Trapezoid.
And I think that like The Verge is definitely staking like its
A
credibility on this.
No, they'll just delete it. That's what they always do.
That's
They
what
just
they
erase
do.
the
We'll
article.
never let you forget The Verge.
Yeah, it's on this podcast. I'm going to put a picture of the article up.
We're changing this to the Verge Watch podcast.
Yeah.
Where we
changing
hold
it to
them
the
accountable.
Virgin podcast.
It's already that.
We're going in on The Verge.
Guys, that was the news.
Yeah.
That was
Not
the
a lot.
news. Not a lot.
Time for segments.
Short and
Time
sweet.
for
Topics.
Topics
topic
of the week.
of the week.
Was that? I thought you had more news topics.
No, that was it.
I don't have
Oh,
a
wow, okay.
topic for the week.
All right, guys. I'm glad that we all have a topic.
Yes.
Yeah. So who wants to go? You want me to go? You go.
Seem excited to go.
Actually, Ethan, go.
Oh, okay. So, I don't know if you guys know this, but
I don't know anything.
Recently, there was a little award show.
Yep.
Where Jeff Keighley got all of his friends together, and he told them which one was his best friend. It's a
We watched a
disgusting,
different show.
hedonistic practice
Yeah.
inside
Really
of
shameful.
corporate America. But before that, a couple weeks ago, the German developer awards happened.
Yes.
and Keen Games that makes my current favorite video game, Enshrouded, that I keep talking about on here that no one plays but me.
Right. Don't think it's a real game.
Won a ton of awards.
Oh.
And so I got interested and I looked up both the German Developer Awards and the German Computer Game Awards and looked up their winners. And I came to a very interesting conclusion. I think they might be doing it better than we're doing. And so what I wanted to talk with you guys about is about game awards, kind of these two different ways in which two different approaches to handing out yearly award shows.
Yeah.
The way the German Game Awards, both of them do things, and then the way the Game Awards do things.
You'll have to break it down because I've not seen.
Yeah,
Right.
I've never seen them.
Yeah,
I didn't even know
I
there was
hadn't
one.
even heard of them. They're very much like inside of Germany.
Mhm.
Like they
Is it broadcast in German or in
Yeah,
English?
it's broadcast in German.
Oh, okay.
It hasn't really gotten big enough to expand outside of it. But this is the thing I think is really interesting that I wanted to bring up as my topic to get your guys' thoughts on, is they don't have a game of the year. They just
Already better.
they
already
do not
like
have
them.
a game of the
Already
year.
better.
Their category for the Game Awards, or for the Computer Game Awards, which Enshrouded wasn't at that,
Yeah.
is they have like German Game of the Year, which is like a game made inside of Germany. And it's always usually like smaller game. And it's not even like the big headliner of the show. It's just like
Sure.
what was made in Germany this year. That's the Game of the Year. And then the next one is international. And then they break everything else down. They have like best game for young adults, best game for kids, best browser game, best mobile game,
Wow.
best family game. Then they have one that doesn't translate great, which is just best serious game, which I think is really
That's
funny.
pretty
That's
funny.
funny. And very German.
Yeah,
Right.
very German.
But they just have it as an award show that's more on the focus of who developed it. The other one, the Game Developer Awards that Enshrouded won at, it's just categories for the developers. So like Keen Games was nominated for best game design, best community, best like story boards and stuff like that.
Ah.
And then they won they won for Enshrouded. Enshrouded was like the game that they were being judged for, but it doesn't say like, and the game of the year is Enshrouded, right? It's like best game direction goes to Keen Games for Enshrouded.
Cool.
And so like the developers then walk up on stage and they talk about the process of making the game.
Yeah.
They also have a category on there, like Baldur's Gate 3 won this year at the German Game Awards because one of their sections is about best maintenance of a game. Maintenance direction is a category where they're like,
Yeah.
which game
At the Game
got
Awards,
the
it also
best?
won
Best ongoing.
Best
Yeah.
ongoing.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So they had like, yeah, what game did like get maintained the best? Which had the best like updates or community responses? They have all these categories that focus on experiences and developers over like these AAA releases.
Mhm.
Like there are, We Fit one international game of the year, and then down to from it's an indie game winning like best kids game of the
This
year.
year we fit.
No, back when they
Oh,
started
I was like,
in
wow,
2016.
they're really
This-
playing
They're way
catch up.
behind those
Yeah.
Germans.
Yeah,
So
they're
catching
just
up.
getting We Fit in Germany now.
Yeah.
So sad what happened to
Uh,
them after the war.
But yeah, I saw that and was like, you have Nintendo winning one game, and then as you go down the list, it's just a bunch of games, and
Yeah.
they're also willing to split awards. So if like two games are doing really good and the panelists can't decide which one they actually think should be better, they give the award to both. So like
That would be a bloodbath in America.
Yeah.
They would
know.
have them like duke it out.
Hmm.
Directors fight to the death.
I'd
Yeah.
watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like they have an honorable mentions, but then they also just like, if they really cannot decide, they're like, these are both perfect 10 out of 10s. They would win easily in a year without the other. They just give it to both of them. They're like,
Mhm.
these two games did so phenomenally. There's not anything better for them to do.
How does that relate to what you're talking about?
So my thought is that like the Game Awards seems to be focused on like this kind of like competitiveness, this kind of like ranking of art itself,
Yeah.
and this it's a bunch into like the pageantry and it becomes this like thing where people feel like their favorite games are all being pitted against each other. Whereas the way the two different award shows in Germany work, they're focused on like highlighting the people who made the game and highlighting the good work they've done.
Yeah.
And it also just they break it into categories and then they don't hand out a best because they're like, there isn't one. You can't compare. It kind of made me think is that like as I was looking through it, I was like, yeah, like Wii Fit is one of the like best fitness games ever made. It might be the single best like exercising game ever made. It is a masterpiece.
Apparently Ring Fit actually is
Ring Fit is supposed to
I've not
really,
played it.
really
I
good.
own it and I've not played it.
What?
Yeah, I own it. Did you know that? It's sitting
Do we
in my
have
office.
the ring thing?
Yeah.
What?
I know, we should play it.
Has
What
bought
the-
things that he just
We're gonna play
never
Ring
told
Fit.
Rachel
It's under the
about.
bed with the Labo set.
Yeah, it's under there with the
Oh,
Labo
boy, we're
sets.
back on Labo.
Well,
Devin's gonna be taking it with him when he gets handed a box of his stuff.
With his twin bed
Oh,
and his
no.
alarm clock.
Anywho.
but how do you judge like if a really great browser game came out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those are really fun. What about a really good kids game? Should it be game of the year? Like just because adults are the ones handing out these awards and like judging them, should a kids game be ignored?
Right.
And so there is this thing where it's like I rarely see games at the Game Awards that don't have like a story. They're almost always story-based games that win, but I don't always think story-based games are the best that came out that year. And then they're almost always like the graphical fidelity on them is really high, but there are pixel-based games that should win Game of the Year.
That also have
That's
amazing
interesting.
Phenomenal.
stories.
They're not even considered. But in the German model, like, yeah, they get considered for whatever section they're in.
Right.
Like there isn't this weird thing happens at the Game Awards where it's like we talk about it sometimes. You joke about it a lot, Devin. There's like the Nintendo Game of the Year, which is just family game.
Yeah.
Like it's seen as a lower
Spoilers,
category.
It lost this year.
And it's like it's a lower category, and they just toss a bunch of Nintendo games in there. And it's like, well, some of those games should be in the running for Game of the Year.
And I think you're kind of hitting on something there where like it's really about what the focus of the thing is, because like if we think about it, Game of the Year at the German Game Awards would just be serious Game of the Year, right? Or whatever that is.
Serious.
But because we put an emphasis on it, the whole show is about it and building toward it. It's like overall Game of the Year rather than just like, but it's always a serious game, and it's like, not a family game, and it's Game of the Year, not always, but like, a lot oftentimes it's the thing that it gets the focus, and then you get family game and it gets announced like in the little sidebar by Jeff alone, and like it's not even on the main stage, and they do that for a bunch of stuff. Best community support gets it that way most of the time, and like these are all the different awards are not treated equally, and I think that comes from award shows like the Oscars and the SAG Awards and stuff, where the same is very much true. But it definitely makes more sense to compare like the people making the games than to the games themselves, right? Because like the one thing that the Oscars do have is they have best director, they have best they have best composer, they have like best some people, a director can win for multiple movies, or have made multiple movies, I guess I should say, and they'll announce that they're winning, for this, and that they made these.
They'll put that into the equation.
Yes, and so we don't really have an equivalent to that at the Game Developer Awards, where they're like the winner is, a best developer this year is Sony for this, or is Nintendo for Mario and Mario Kart, right? Like,
no,
it's always just the individual game, and that game won. Yeah, right.
I don't necessarily see an issue with doing both. Like, you can commemorate the developer and commemorate the game, because there is an argument. Yeah. I'm definitely of the mind that like the art should speak for itself. Like, can you put art out there, and it's like, well, you got to get to know me to really get to know the art. Can the art stand on its own? Is it something that you can share with the world, or is it something that has to be yours? That You have to look at me if you're looking at my art. That argument's always interesting to me, that like the anonymous painter probably has a bigger effect on the world than the guy who is standing in front of his painting. Like, so I do get both arguments, that like the developers worked hard on it and deserve credit. I would never take that away from them. But at the same time, game developers, especially Japanese game developers, really want their game to speak. A lot of them prefer to have very private lives. Balatro won a bunch of awards, and the guy who made it did not go to the Game Awards. By his own admission, he's just a private person. He doesn't want his face being viewed by millions of people. So that's also part of it. But I've also been reading just about, like, when you guys think of award shows and stuff like that, you know, I've kind of been looking at the origin of them, and like they were originally more like to commemorate something, or to like, they were just like a ceremony, as like, oh, it's the end of the year, let's talk about what happened this year. And I think, to your point, it's off the rails. We're not there anymore.
I feel like it's also this thing where it's like everyone sees the Game Awards, they always are, the conversation around them always gets so crass around just like, this piece of art is superior to this other one, and it's like we're trying to like judge and value the art, and then at the end we hand the art an award, and it gets gross in a lot of ways. And then when you have
Ethan wasn't a fan of my metaphor rant last week, I take it.
I haven't heard it yet.
It's coming.
It's coming.
But once we get up to that point where there's just, now we're talking about the game of the year. I'm like,
it's too much.
It feels so skeezy.
Yeah.
It feels cheesy. It feels a little gross that like there's someone out there made a phenomenal video game that just doesn't have AAA graphics and it doesn't have a story, but it's the best game you're ever going to play. Tetris wouldn't win. Tetris wouldn't win, you know, like it doesn't have any of those things.
Right.
And that guy sitting out there making the next Tetris is looking at it going like, well, this won't win an award.
Right.
Guys working on their community, you know, like Enshrouded is doomed to, like, even when it comes out in 1.0, it's a 2-year-old game at that point. No one's going to talk about it. And so it's like these are doomed to obscurity because they're not these giant AAA story heavy giant, you know, productions, and they're not going to get game of the year. But there's, I don't know, I saw the German model for both those award shows, and I just thought like the conversation is really positive. The studios were really proud. The communities were just popping off, and they were also like cross thanking each other. Like one company got there, they got nominated for a bunch, won nothing, still posted about it, still mentioned Keen Games and like 2 others of like, these guys did so good, we just wanted to highlight them. It was a celebration of games, where I feel like the Game Awards has just become like, man, it's just like a bunch of dogs gnawing at each other the whole time.
Even you heard it here first, folks. The Germans did it better. We should have let them win.
They perfected it.
The German model.
I don't know about that last part. Ty, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll go. It segues pretty well into mine because Ethan was talking about how all of the good games are story games.
Good games.
Good games. No, I like to keep things, you know that I like to keep things simple.
I know.
On the Power Brothers podcast, because I am a simple man.
He's the simple brother.
And most of our viewers can't understand anything more complex.
Ooh.
No.
Take that.
He attacked the
I
viewer.
attacked the viewers.
I think you just can't understand.
I attacked the viewers. No, yeah, that's correct. I can't understand the viewers
And
what they see in this show. Now, I wanted to talk about video game stories and what you thought, which ones had the biggest impact on you. I initially conceived of this topic as just like, what's the best video game story, you know? And then I was like, that's too simple and too reductive.
Sure.
What moved you? What video games had a story that moved you? We know that video games don't need a story to move you. Some of them are beautiful, but specifically, which ones had like a story and you experienced it and you went, that moved me? You know?
Fortnite.
Yeah, that's of course.
Next
the story
topic.
of how Rachel got a battle royale.
Yeah.
That was moving.
She was really excited when she got her first
was.
solo.
She
That
was
overshadowed
really
the Game Awards
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah,
She was
yeah.
doing that
Same.
in the Game Awards.
Yeah, same.
I think I know what yours is.
But mine is hard to answer. There's a hard question.
There's
to
so
answer.
many.
For me,
you.
the
there might
answer
be
I come
several.
to that is most simple is the one that affected me the most profoundly is the one that influenced the way I write.
Mhm.
Is it the last story that you ever played
It
in a game?
is.
Called the final story.
I don't think I've ever mentioned being an artist on this show until
You've
today.
never mentioned it.
where I mentioned doing digital art.
Yeah, I don't think you did.
I'm also a writer. I write books.
Yeah.
I like them. I think they're neat.
Good.
But
Yeah.
I've been writing for a long time, and when I played the last story and saw the way he crafted a world using negative space, it changed the way I write.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful game. It's a fantastic, it's a fantastic setting, a fantastic story, fantastic characters. It's a great adventure. It's great romance. It's got it all. But the way he tells a lot of things is in its negative space.
Like the USA Network logo. There's no S in it.
Yeah, right.
It's just a
just
U
a
and
gap.
an A with like weird blorbs on them,
Yeah.
and you see the S.
Yes.
You think I'm kidding?
Put
That's
the-
a
put the
real.
USA
That's a real
Yeah,
thing.
USA
That's a
Network
real
logo.
thing.
Yeah, so like there's a character in it who's a villain who like he never fights, but like he's this like villainous character, and somehow his ambitions to like conquer everything fizzled out, and he kind of settled on this
Sure.
like lower life, and he's like his face and his arm are a little messed up. And he walks with a cane, and it never explains what happened. And this other villain just knows how to get through his castle. Never explains how the villain knows.
Yeah.
And the thing that like you can put together at one point is that they worked together. It's never said. Neither of those characters reveal that. But then
Spoiler alert.
there's this part where it's very obvious how the character got those injuries. You
Yeah.
see another character get the same kind of injuries, and he gets them from this like magical item handed to him by another villain. And it's like I was playing this like the fourth time through the game, and I'm just like seeing that and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get the cork board out.
Yeah.
And once you put it all together in the negative
He goes
space,
Charlie Day on
you
the
can
last story.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the negative space, you can see a story being crafted,
Yeah.
and it's just genius. And so that's probably the one that affected me the most, is because
Yeah.
it changed how I write, changed like how I think about story crafting and storytelling.
Yeah.
Is that like I basically have a whole book now where I'm writing that a lot of elements are told using negative space instead of positive.
That's interesting. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
about you, Div?
So like throughout my childhood, I got blamed a lot for
No,
stuff.
no.
You did a
that
lot.
Someone
You did a lot
that
of stuff.
I didn't do, but someone who looked like me did. So in Super Mario Sunshine,
Oh,
Mario gets
gosh.
blamed for Shadow Mario's dealings. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
In Mario and Sonic Adventure 2,
Yeah.
Sonic gets
Shadow
blamed
the Hedgehog.
for Shadow's murders.
We just mentioned Sonic 3, the movie, buzzword, putting
Putting it in the
hashtag.
title.
Switch 2, Sonic 3, the
Switch 2.
movie.
PS5 flash sale. PS5 fire. Click
sale.
now. No. The existence on YouTube. No, the two games I'll highlight were on the GameCube, which was like
Your formative years.
all of our formative years, just
Childhood.
little different phases of it. Ty was old.
fully formed,
Ty was
yeah,
40
old
years
man.
old when the GameCube
Yeah,
came out.
Yep. Helped
He's
engineer
got
the
one
thing.
foot out the door, folks.
He still is 40.
He still is 40. Somebody got trapped there.
Yeah.
No, the two games I'll
Samurai Jack
highlight
situation.
is one we just both of them we love, but one is very special to the brotherhood of the Power Brothers podcast, which is Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles,
Oh yeah.
because it told a story. Big spoiler alerts for Crystal Chronicles. I almost don't want you to listen to me because it's such a good story. Go to this timestamp if you don't want to get spoiled. Crystal Chronicles. No, the story, the whole game is about you like write down in a journal.
Yeah.
The whole game is kind of centered around creating memories. It
Yeah.
even tracks, for some reason, while you're playing it, like tracks how many memories you have. And then you find out that the whole story is like focused around how that's what's most valuable is the memories you have with people. Because there's a character in it who's been like really important, and he is like he's wretched and his life is horrible, and it's because he lost all his memories. And then there's another guy whose life is a constant conflict and horrible, and he lost all his memories. And then, big spoiler, here it comes. When you fight the last boss, your memories are your health against him.
Yeah.
He's pulling your memories from you, and once you hit 0 memories, you don't know
Lose.
why you're there, and you lose against him.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's so genius to
Mhm.
tell the story and you didn't even realize you were being told the story.
Yeah.
is that like these little experiences, you know, as your little caravan runs across, we all know the little like wah, 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 wah. Something's happening. You know, it's not a stage that you were going to. You didn't mean
like
for it to
little
happen.
event.
It just randomly, you just bumped into somebody,
Yeah.
and that's a memory that is then saved, and you had it with your friends, and in the memory,
Depending on which version of Crystal Chronicles you played.
I
don't talk
was
about
like,
that.
I'm not mentioning that. The awful remake. No, but like it even in the memory, it'll tell you who you were with.
Yeah,
If someone brought their character from another save file,
it's saved.
it says that that's who you were with. And the game, the whole message of the game was that like your memories and the things that have happened to you is who you are. And if you lose them, you lose who you are.
The journey is more important than the destination. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
It's to go along with your point. Anytime you go to a new like area, the narrator starts telling like a little story about the area.
Yeah.
And at first it just seems like I was like, oh, is that supposed to be us? Is that supposed to be someone in our group?
Or just like an overall.
And then slowly you start to piece it together that it was someone who was with those two characters that lost their memories. It
Yeah.
is the
The
memories
characters.
of someone else, and it's how important all
those
of those
memories
were.
are, yeah.
And those narrations are done. If I might be mistaken, it's been years, but I think they're done by the woman who sings the main title song. I'm almost certain
I think
it
so.
is.
I think so.
And they are just hauntingly beautiful.
Mhm,
If you just want to just feel emotional about a game you've never played, just go and watch all the title intros for the stages of Crystal Chronicles. Some are funny, some are quaint, some are like little fairy tales, and some are devastatingly beautiful.
Yeah. And the thing that I'll say that really touched me real quick to just wrap my point was when they announced what turned out to be kind of a crummy remake, a comment I saw that if I can find it, maybe I'll put it up. But it really touched me because they talked about the game and how their mom had Alzheimer's and was slowly forgetting everybody, and how the game was very cathartic because the person in the comment mentioned that they have the hope that someday they'll be with their mom again and that their mom will remember them. But it was very cathartic for them to see, like, you know, a story about how important memory was, because they could really relate to having someone. And in the comment, the person said that like it felt like mom was gone just because she couldn't remember anything. She was physically there, but she was gone because her memories were gone, and the game was, you know, painful for them. But it was cathartic to see like a story that really hit home what they were feeling.
Put the importance on it.
Put the importance on
like
it.
defeating
Instead of
the
it
villain.
being a side point.
It's not about losing your life or everybody dying. It's just about forgetting and how
Is that
devastating
Gerard,
it
the
is.
completionist?
No.
No? Oh.
No, this was just a YouTube commenter, not a charity fraudster. Anyways,
Maybe we went too serious. We had
Too
to bring
serious.
it back.
Gerard,
we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, come on the pod. Come on the pod. Steal our money.
Yeah,
We
come
got
on.
that.
we'll put you in the thumbnail.
You can have Quentin's seat.
Do a fundraiser with us.
Go have Mario's seat.
Yeah.
The other game I'll highlight real quick, Metroid Prime. I didn't realize that you could tell a story without telling it.
That's true. Metroid Prime.
If you don't open the scan visor, it has no story.
It has no story if you don't open the scan visor.
But genius way
We
to
had
tell
a friend
story.
who played the whole game that way and was like, this game sucks. I don't know how to do anything or where I'm supposed to
He
go.
couldn't understand why we thought the story was good. And we were like, did you read any of it? He's like, read?
Read what?
What do you mean?
In a
read?
video game?
In a video game? All the
In a
text
video
is just
game?
squiggly lines.
No. That was a cool way to tell a story.
That was a cool way to tell a
Yeah.
story. I think that's one of video game strengths is that they sometimes can tell a story in a way that movies have a harder time expressing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
One of the games that like the story really moved me is a series from a game studio, an indie studio called Stoic. The series is called the Banner Saga, and in particular, the first game. All three games have great stories, but the first game's basically a perfect narrative, and it does this without any real. There's a couple of moments of animated cutscenes and a couple of moments of spoken dialogue, but the vast majority of it is just like little character pictures and text.
Yeah.
And it tells this intricate and deep story of these characters who are fleeing their home. And you're doing a little Oregon Trail style thing across these like hills, and then you have turn-based battles and stuff.
Yeah.
But every time you feel these characters because they're so well developed. It's like reading a novel with a few little visual components, and then you play the novel.
That's awesome.
And it's such a good story, and I got so attached to the characters. And the game has a really brutal mechanic where sometimes, in other turn-based strategy games like Fire Emblem, you can lose a character on the field of battle and they're dead for good. And the Banner Saga, they don't die for good if they fall in battle. They're wounded for X number of days and they take extra rations.
This is in
stuff.
the Banner Saga?
Yeah.
Oh.
But depending on the choices you make during story moments, they might immediately die. And the game is especially cruel because sometimes the result of a choice you made is not said right away, and it'll wait until after it is saved. Made a choice here, save point, going along with the story, character dies, have to load all the way back if I didn't want them to die.
Oof.
The game, and they're all great characters that you love and you're on a journey with, and the only right way to play the game is blind and just accept the story as it comes, because the tragedy and the beauty of the story is often in the tragedy. And even if you try to do a perfect run of the game, the tragedy can't always be avoided. And
I think that's a good idea.
It's a great idea. It's a great way to tell a game, and it's something that you can't really do in a TV show or a movie, because it has so much text, and you can't really do it in a book because it has this strong visual component. It has this experiential component where you're being these characters, you're playing with them
big time,
and I love it. It's just it's a very unique experience.
I need to play it. I own both.
It's
of
all
them.
on the Switch.
Yeah, I own both of them on the Switch.
Yeah, well, there's 3. All right, so Devin, what did you want to talk to us about this week?
I want to talk about, and I saved this topic.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're out of time. Bye, guys.
Yeah, bye everybody. No, I want to save this topic for when we have Mario here instead.
Mario
of
is here.
Because it'll become very obvious why I can't bring this up, and you're gonna be furious when you see this, Quentin. You can't say anything about it. You can't make your little comments about it.
You
can't say like I could play it at 4K.
You can't do it. Do it in the comments.
Do it in the comments.
Get wrecked.
That's such a good Quentin impression.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, really great.
It's like if you close your eyes, it's like he's here.
Like he's here.
That's why you keep them open.
Yeah,
that's why you keep them open always.
The fear, the genuine fear in your eyes.
He's right behind you.
He's right behind you.
That's really good.
That's why I keep little mirrors.
We love you, Quentin. I hope that's obvious. We love you. No, yeah. So that was good. This does not count as my segment. No. I want to talk about NSO, Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah.
Started off small and sort of like there wasn't a whole lot on it. But it's one of those things where it's like Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars. You were like, it sucked at the beginning, but now it's like my favorite thing ever. And then you realize that maybe
you hate it again later.
Nope, that's not me. But then you realize oh man, maybe the people who were making it purposefully made it bad at first so that you liked it later. And the reason I say that is, and I want your guys' opinion on this, which do you think is better? There's a certain, I don't want to call it ceremony, but there's a certain highlighting,
like a fanfare.
Yeah, fanfare. That's the perfect word. There's a certain fanfare to things that makes something a moment instead of just a thing that happened.
Yeah.
And certain people that aren't here currently would like to say that there should be, you should just do things and just throw it out there and just let it.
That the fanfare doesn't matter.
The fanfare is annoying, and and to be fair, it's not just Quentin. A lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, of course.
They're like, all these games should have been just dumped onto a ROM. I can get them on the internet, but there's an interesting effect where Nintendo doesn't have to make these trailers for Banjo-Kazooie or for GoldenEye. They don't have to do that because the game's just coming for free onto a service that all of us already have and are already paying for. They're literally advertising a service that you already have. But here's the question, is that is it better, do you think, to release these games on a drip feed and then highlight them? Better, not just from a business standpoint. I'm talking about the game, because if you just dumped all the Game Boy Advance games on there, I would never touch The Legend of Starfy. I don't get it, but they're being drip fed, and then The Legend of Starfy popped up, and I was like, why not? It's an amazing game. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's all in Japanese, and I can't understand it.
What was that Fireman game?
Yeah, I was
On the
thinking
Super
same
Nintendo,
thing.
it's super fun, and I'd never heard of it, never would have played it.
I am really big into like that hunting for hidden gems.
Yeah.
And I do that a lot on the Super Nintendo and a lot on the Sega Genesis.
Right.
It does kind of like bring into the focus that like there was a big gap between those two consoles.
Yeah.
Because like I grew up kind of thinking the Sega Genesis was like a good rival for the Super Nintendo, and you dig through the games and you're just like, it's so hard to find a good gem on the
It overlapped more with
Sega.
the NES.
Yeah.
It was
But
like
so
89 or something.
I've talked about how like the Switch hasn't been a very good console for me. Right?
Yeah,
Like, I haven't enjoyed it a ton. NSO is one part that I actually love.
Yeah.
And I love it for exactly the way they did it. Is
Mhm.
if I want to play like Metroid Zero Mission, I can play that on my phone, right? I
Yeah.
can play that. I have
Sure.
a Retroid to play all those old games on. The way the Switch has released all of its NSO games has given me time to say like, what's new?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of them would be like, oh, they brought in Kirby's Dream Land. Fantastic game, of course.
Yeah.
I haven't played a lot of those. I played like A Link to the Past a bunch on there, and I
Yeah.
played some of the older, like a couple of games on there that, Star Fox and stuff.
But I've played the ones I love so many times.
Yeah. The
Like, I
way
didn't
they
necessarily-
drip them out, it's like, oh, they'll release The Legend of Zelda, right? And
Yeah.
then beside it, they'll release this firefighter game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I pick up and play through a little bit of The Legend of Zelda, or maybe beat all of it, and then like, what was the other new thing here? Oh, some weird firefighter game. Why not, right? And I'll click
Yeah.
on it and start it up, and then it's fantastic, right? That like fanfare for the big things and the little things means that like, even if I don't play it all the way through, I just like grab a little game I've never played and give it a try. Maybe it's bad, maybe it's good, but I think it's way better. We already have these games emulated.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
need them. So
Yeah.
what can this bring? If it dumped all of them, I have better ways to play them.
I found
it
some,
just wouldn't,
I found
it
some
wouldn't
good
matter.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that I will find these new ones and give them a try, and it also would just have access to games that I've forgotten about, like Tetris Attack. Forgot about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
played it, saw it on the NSO, and was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite Super Nintendo games.
Right.
Played it, loved it again, right?
Yeah.
I think that the way they do it is fantastic.
I do too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I'm a little bit divided in the sense that like I agree, I like the fanfare and I like that they kind of drip feed it. Because it does give you this opportunity to find new games. I do wish the pace was a little bit faster,
That's
because
fair.
it's taken us a long
That's fair.
time to get to some of the things that I like. A lot of people are like, "Well, why haven't they got onto GameCube? Why haven't they?" I'm like, "You guys don't understand how emulation works."
No.
The Switch. The next console will probably launch, and they're going to time it so that the NSO expansion gets GameCube right at the same time, because
Definitely.
it would be
yeah.
it's really hard to emulate GameCube on the Switch.
I think they'll lock it to
Um,
Switch 2.
I
Buy
think-
the Switch 2. if
No,
you
I
want
think so
GameCube.
too,
Yeah.
because there are people will point out that on modded consoles and stuff you can run GameCube games, but they don't run perfectly. And
Exactly.
on a service, when you're providing a service, whether you're Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo, you are trying to. One of the reasons you can't just dump these game ROMs into an emulator and run them like many people do on their home PCs is that like you need these to run consistently and essentially perfectly every time. They can never have a memory leak and crash the system, because then you will have people crashing their systems,
Yeah.
and like you
Losing save data potentially. and stuff,
these
yeah.
games basically have to run perfectly or as close to consistently as possible.
Yeah.
And so they require hours and hours and hours of testing to make sure they work with the emulator. The emulator sometimes has problems even after launch, and those have to be debugged, but there's no doubt that they're putting in a lot of time. So while I wish the pace was a little bit better, I do understand the fact that they
Yeah.
can't just dump them all. And because if some people put ROMs on their computer and they work from the word go, but anybody who's like me and set up this stuff for all of their family members knows that like sometimes you put something on there and nothing works,
Right.
and you've got to do some troubleshooting. You can't afford that on a console.
No.
No one gets to troubleshoot it.
Yeah.
And so I think that the way they've rolled it out has been good. I was very iffy on the NSO when it launched. It just
It
didn't have that much.
It was like NES, I think it was
bare bones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said as long as they don't like, and at the time the initial package is super cheap, but even when the expansion pass came out and it was expansion pack, I was like, it's not a great value now, but the thing about these systems is if they don't raise the price, the value just gets greater and greater as time goes on. They haven't raised the price, to my knowledge. It's
added a lot.
It's added
to it.
so much value. Yeah. You've got all these N64 games, Game Boy Advance games. You've got classics like GoldenEye that even have enhancements and stuff.
Yep.
Perfect Dark.
I do have a question about NSO. So I'm a little behind. I haven't played my Switch much this year. Do the Game Boy Advance games have the connection features?
Yes, yeah,
to each other? Because I remember Sonic Advance had a great chow garden. You could trade chows between players. And stuff
I will
with,
say some of the data transfer stuff is not in the game.
You can't do the Oracle's data transfer link, can you? You have to use the passwords.
Yeah, you have to use the passwords.
Yeah.
Mario Tennis, I think came to the NSO, and it did come to the NSO. Yeah. It just already has the character. So Mario Tennis on Game Boy Color, you would get, I think it was Bowser and another character. You would get them just by linking it to the N64 one. Yeah. The NSO one just has it.
And I think Metroid Zero Mission has the artwork from Fusion that you'd get from the Game Boy link.
I think so.
Which is funny because what leaked about Zero Mission was instructions for activating a Game Boy link in the NSO browser, and they seem to have dropped that idea because they're like, this is too complicated. It's not going to work. Let's just unlock this stuff.
Yeah, there's so much potential.
But multiplayer games like what Mario Kart and stuff, they work. They have a link even over the internet.
It's even a little bit different because it'll you're going to view this person's screen.
Oh, you can see their screen, yeah.
Well, for a second, and then it's okay, now your Game Boy is connecting and turning on, and it'll actually do the little animation of turning on and connecting.
Yeah, cool. And the whole screen goes dark unless you buy a special version of the NSO that has a backlight.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they really went into it.
You got to hold your TV in the sun.
I did wonder if they were going to do that, make the screen you can turn the light off.
That's too funny. That's so funny.
I think it's just interesting to highlight older games because I was at the reason I picked this topic was because yesterday I was at Chick-fil-A and I saw a little kid and he was on the Game Boy Advance playing Golden Sun. And he's little.
That's adorable.
And I know for a fact that he just went in there and opened it up and was just playing because he was getting frustrated because it's an old game.
Yeah.
And an old game is game.
Yeah.
And his little tiny brain can't handle it.
Yeah. What an idiot.
Yeah. We're clowning on children now.
Take that, children.
Yeah, take that, children. No, but I was like, that would never have happened if Golden Sun cost money because the kid would not know it's out there. He would not see Golden Sun and go, Dad, I want to play it. I mean, maybe his dad's a fan of it and buys it and forces him to play it. Maybe.
It gives these little games a chance to excel next to the titans that people would normally pay for.
I will say this, though. The big test of whether or not that model is a good idea or a bad idea is a little retroactive because if the Switch 2 just doesn't have the NSO on it,
I'm burning it all down.
Then we waited super long to fill this library out to get it dumped again.
I believe they actually did say specifically that your NSO purchases would carry over to the Switch 2.
They said that a long time ago.
Well, no, when they announced the backward compatibility.
No. I mean that they said it a long time ago when Furukawa was at a meeting and he was overviewing Nintendo Switch Online.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, we want to introduce it, get people on board it, and then just keep increasing it in value. And on the little graph, it says future Nintendo consoles, and it kept going over.
But now we do say that, but we know how all companies work, and sometimes they just change direction, and something they're like, we're not going to use the same kind of architecture anymore, which means no backward compatibility. But that's probably not happening this generation. So to Ethan's statement, you got to carry these things forward.
It has to, otherwise, what a big
the model is
waste of time.
The model is great. I think that the fanfare for these old games, you attach some hidden gems with them. Like you said, it gets it out to newer players. You do connectivity, like the thing you were talking about, but the Game Boy just has the characters. Mario Party or Mario Tennis just has the characters.
Yeah,
all of that is fantastic if the next console picks up where this one left off,
Yeah.
and keeps
Yeah.
going.
Yes.
Because if the next console doesn't, and like, what do you do then? Try and sell me the same like
No.
fanfare of
Right.
games over again?
I think
don't
that
think
if
it works
they ever
twice.
make
No,
a
it
console,
definitely doesn't.
they have to abandon backward compatibility. The move at that point, though Nintendo's going to be very hesitant to do it, is to release NSO as an app like on the Windows Store or something, so they can
Interesting.
still control the distribution of this. They're not selling their main new games on other hardware,
No.
but because they can no longer support that on their existing hardware, they continue to release it. You probably have people who don't buy Nintendo consoles subscribing to NSO to play Nintendo games on their PC.
You could.
And it probably wouldn't hurt their console sales because the new games are all still on their consoles and it's just these old games. But until they make a console that's no longer backward compatible, which I can't see a good reason to do in the near future from a technology standpoint,
Too far out. Yeah.
they don't really need to consider that necessarily.
Well, and I'm excited because we're always talking about the Nintendo Vault, how Nintendo has all this stuff.
yeah,
And the NSO is turning into this living library
yeah,
where, like, yes, Nintendo has the greatest catalog of any one company, including all of their other guys. And now Nintendo's slowly adding to it. And
Yeah.
I'm excited on Switch 2 that GameCube will be the next one.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
we'll be getting drip-fed
watch
GameCube
him
games.
just do DS instead of GameCube. No GameCube.
No, that would be
it's DS.
exciting.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
DS.
Yeah. It's
and
Game
then-
and Watch.
And then
I'll
someday...
be excited for that too.
someday 3DS can be in the mix,
Yeah.
and Wii U can be in, like, all kinds of. Nintendo is creating a system to where it's cool that fans that grew up with it can get re-excited. I was
Yeah.
so excited when I saw the trailer for Banjo-Kazooie, and
Yeah.
I'm watching in what was it? It was this year, and like I was watching a trailer for Banjo-Kazooie that had like a production value, not huge. It was clearly just Nintendo assigned a guy to make a trailer for Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, I could have done it.
Yeah, but yeah. Wave Race got a trailer,
Yeah.
and it's just cool that it's like these old games that are game.
It's celebrating these old
It-
games.
Yeah.
Also, when they added Sega games,
Yeah,
big.
that was
big.
huge.
Yeah.
So, like, my thought is, like, are we going to get Dreamcast
Oh, I
on
would
the
love
NSO?
That would be
Like,
cool.
You're making Quentin so mad that he
That he's
wasn't
not
here,
here.
for this.
I know,
Yeah,
I
You
know.
mentioned Dreamcast.
I would love
He
to
like
get
chest bursts out of the
Yeah.
Mario.
Our-
through the window.
Yeah.
I want to play Sonic Adventure on my Switch. The greatest Sonic
the
game.
best Sonic
Yeah.
game. Yeah, like is it Turbo Graphics going to come on there at some point? Like,
Oh,
we
it
just don't
could.
know. It's
It
great.
should.
It could.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Sega Genesis has had a lot of updates. Has
It has.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
really?
okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's.
Yeah.
I don't
Not
know.
a lot of like. I think there's only still one Sonic game, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a good question.
There
I
really
a
don't
lot of
really
their
know.
really big games they want to save for collections and stuff, but like
Yeah,
some
sort
of them are never getting onto it.
Nintendo really called in their favors with it because like
Yeah.
Street Fighter 2
That's
is
a-
on
that's
the
a good
Sega
one,
Genesis
yeah.
one. So NSO, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's great now. I think it's added
Yeah.
enough value that like
Mhm.
especially if you can get a family plan, if you can find 5
Yeah.
people to go in on it with you,
Yeah.
it's so cheap
Oh yeah,
and so worth getting.
unless you're me, where you have a family plan and no one pays you for it. You see no money.
That just like the podcast.
That's you guys.
Just like the podcast.
I brought it up just to get money
Oh
out
my
of you.
God.
Give me
Mom told me
$5.
about what happened with the Amazon card.
Some more lore dropping.
Yeah, a little
Some
lore
lore
dropping.
All right, everybody.
Guys.
That's a podcast.
Not yet.
Are we doing games I haven't played?
What games that
Wait.
if you haven't played them, how do you feel about them though? So it's a game you haven't
Strongly.
played. This is a terrible way to
This is what
games I haven't played, but I have strong opinions about. Guys,
Dragon.
welcome to games I haven't played, but I have strong opinions about. This is a game where you say something about a game you haven't played, and nobody gets to say anything about you, including in the comments. Don't come at me.
Come at him.
Yeah, you should come at me. All right, we're gonna start with Rachel.
I love how I introduced this section and I have nothing. Literally nothing.
I
that I
knew
can-
you
Classic
too.
Rachel.
So I'll just say all of them. All the games I haven't played. I think I should play
I'll
them.
throw you a bone.
Okay.
What's a game that you just found out that we have sitting under the bed?
Maybe it has a
Oh yeah,
ring in it.
Ring Fit. Yeah.
You got an opinion?
Okay, so I have not played. What is it? Ring Fit Adventure?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Okay.
Nailed it.
I think it's stupid. It's got a hula hoop, and hula hooping is foolish.
I
and
guess
a waste
we'll
of
see
time.
when you play it.
Well,
If you
I
keep
guess-
that
I
opinion.
guess we'll see.
We'll
I'm
find
not
out.
going to
We'll
question
see.
Rachel, but also she's lying. She thinks it looks great, and she loves hula hooping. Of course. I'm calling you out.
I'm calling you out.
Dare you?
All right, Ty.
I've never played Ring Fit Adventure,
You can't go. No, absolutely not.
but it looks like it involves exercise, and therefore I don't want to. It's a bad
Yeah.
game. A bad game.
less of a strong feeling and more of
General
a
feeling.
lack
I
of
could
a
have. I
strong
could
feeling.
substitute with Wii Fit.
yeah.
I'm not good, but I don't need my video game to tell me I'm fat.
All right, Ethan. Do you want to
Okay.
close or do you want me to close?
No, I'll go next.
Okay.
So this is slightly more complicated than normal,
Mhm.
but only slightly. I've never played Sega Team Racing or whatever it's called. You know, the Sega
All Stars Racing.
That's the one.
Sonic and all whatever.
I am irrationally angry about it. It makes me furious. And see, here's the thing. As you know,
Mhm.
I don't like Mario Kart.
No,
I'm not a big Mario Kart guy. I will play it.
breaks my heart.
It is fine.
Sure.
I have beaten all the races.
Right.
I am not bad at it anymore. I'm pretty good at it now.
Yeah.
I don't like it that much. I will never buy one and play it on my own.
Sure.
That being said, I see Sega All-Star Team Bandicoot Racing and I get furious. Everything about it makes me furious.
Yeah.
Listen, Sonic drives a car that he's faster than.
That's fair.
That's
Sonic
fair.
drives a car that he's faster than. You get a boxing glove and it fires out, it punches people, but it's not from any game.
It's goofy.
It's so infuriating. The only good thing is that they put Wreck-It Ralph in there, which I do like that Wreck-It
Yeah.
Ralph is there because that's a cool little part of it. Every
Sure.
other character is just the most horrifying creature.
Banjo and Kazooie are in the second one.
Yeah.
On the Xbox version,
Oh.
and they went with the nuts and bolts horrifying. version.
Ah.
Why? Exactly. Every
Yeah.
decision it is a game that every single decision of it is wrong, is bad. In the Lord of the Rings,
Oh no.
Treebeard says
He's going
Oh,
wide.
Yeah.
Treebeard says that trolls were made by Morgoth in cruel mockery of ints,
Hmm.
right? And that is the Sega Team All-Star R Racing, right?
Yeah.
It was made in cruel mockery of Mario Kart, which is why it is just an inferior parody of this better product. I have such a irrationally strong opinion about a game series that I don't like, in a genre I don't like, that I shouldn't care about in the first place. I have such a strong opinion about that game.
I feel like people are gonna go and look at their game collections, and their copy of that game has just spontaneously combusted.
Yeah, you roasted
from
it.
After
from
Ethan's
Ethan's
roast.
hatred
That might
for
be
the
the
game.
strongest
Yeah.
opinion this game has ever seen.
Ever,
Yeah.
ever. That is a strong opinion.
Guys,
That's a strong
I
opinion.
recently learned that I had never played this game. Think about that.
Oh,
I
wow.
recently learned. I've not played the original Mario Kart Arcade GP.
Oh, okay.
And I can't emotionally handle the fact that I have not played a Mario Kart game.
Do we need to show another clip of your Mario Kart shelf to,
Here it
to
is.
drive this
No,
home?
yeah, I can't handle it. I can't handle that it exists. I'm gonna have to talk to Quentin about how to go to this magical place he calls Emu something, Emulayland
Emu
or something,
Station.
Emu Station. Yeah, it broke my heart. I thought I had played it, but I did not know.
Sequel.
I didn't realize that there were 3 that have been in arcades, and I've only played 2.
And
so-
as well.
Yeah. So if I'm not in the next podcast, it's because I
Depression.
have. Yeah. There you go.
You're off to China to
It's
find.
because I Minecraft myself.
you're off to China to find a warehouse that
Yeah,
has one
find-
plugged up on the
yeah,
corner.
yeah.
Makes sense.
All
right.
guys. That
All
was
right,
the podcast.
That's
You
a
guys,
podcast.
if you're
We did
still
it.
here,
Put Minecraft in the
put
comments.
Minecraft in the comments.
Yeah.
It's a good
yeah.
game.
Also,
It's a good
like,
game.
comment, and subscribe because Devin forgot to say it earlier in the episode.
Oh yeah.
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 And he
That would
made
be
me
cool.
he made me say it even though he knows I detest
wow.
the fact that we have to
Ty's
say that
doing
every
so
episode.
good. Ty's doing so good. Thank you guys for watching. Thank Quentin for not
Yes.
being here.
Yeah,
Thank Mario for being
I just
here.
noticed he wasn't here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was like a nice.
I could
peaceful
swear he was
air.
talking at the beginning during the news.
Yeah,
And
some of
thank
'em.
God everyone had a topic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the best part.
I'm really
That
happy
was
about
great.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
We'll see you next
Bye.
week. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.